Hello everybody, welcome back to the Norisring, welcome back to the streets of Nuremberg for the second free practice session for the DTM, a absolute highlight of the calendar here. And we've just had a very spectacular qualifying session for Porsche's 6th Carrera Cup Deutschland, and you can see now as the track clears of Porsches and we get ready for the second free practice session positions, the conditions are absolutely glorious. There are people canoeing out on the Dutzendijk Lake, and we are getting ready in a few moments for our second free practice session for DTM. This morning, it was Mauro Engel who was the quickest of all in FP1 with a 49.202. A really strong free practice session from him. And he mastering the conditions here at the Norisring. It is the 83rd International ADAC Norisring Speed Weekend that we are enjoying the Friday free practice session before it all gets really serious tomorrow with qualifying and the race. The audience are packed into the grandstands. We are about 365 kilometers southwest of where we were just a couple of weeks ago. We were at the Lausitzring, and it was there that we saw Ben Durr and McLaren take their first ever win in race 1. And in the second race, we saw Matteo Cairoli take his second win of the season in the DTM, and in so doing, moved himself to the top of the points standings. It was a very hot weekend, and it was challenging conditions for the drivers, challenging conditions for everybody. It's pretty warm here at the Norisring once again, but nowhere near the kind of temperatures that we experienced at the Lausitzring. It is gorgeous here at the moment, 23.7 degrees centigrade. Some would say absolutely perfect for DTM racing. The track's up to 34.5 degrees centigrade, and we are very shortly waiting for the cars to come out on track for their second free practice session of the day, and indeed their final free practice session before it gets really serious. So tomorrow morning will be qualifying, and that is when things will really start to get serious. There is the driver classification coming into this weekend. Matteo Cairoli with just 1 point advantage over Mauro Engel and Lucas Auer. It's always tight at the top of the championship in DTM. There you can see the 1, 2, 3 separated by 1 point. Marco Wittmann, has he got a home advantage here? He lives in Fürth, just up the road. He is just 7 points back in the point standings, and he's there really as a result of just a lot of consistency. He's had a couple of podiums this year, but Marco Wittmann in the BMW still looking for that first win of the season. So at the moment, the cars, you can see nothing too frantic as the cars get ready to head out onto the circuit. But in a moment, it's going to get very busy because this will be the last opportunity to refine setups, to get everything tuned, ready for qualifying tomorrow morning. That qualifying will be critical because here at the Norisring, track position is everything. It's a circuit that is just 2.162 kilometers around with 5 turns, 4 to the left and 1 to the right. Also running in an anti-clockwise direction, which does all sorts of things to your head because most drivers are used to running in a clockwise direction. There is the 2023 champion, Thomas Preining, alongside him, his co-winner for the Spa 24-hour race last weekend. We should need Bastian Buss in the picture as well. We'll have all 3 of the drivers who took that emotional win at Spa-Francorchamps. Another driver who was part of that race last weekend, Spa 24, was Norisring, and it is an absolute privilege and a delight this weekend because we are at the Norisring. Chris Hartley is at the Lando Norisring, at Silverstone. Maybe we should rename this the Morrisring because we have Maurice Schering alongside me. Good afternoon, Maurice. How are you?
Cheers, Brian. I'm guessing how long it took you to think of that one. Did you have that prepared?
No, I didn't actually. That kind of came to mind, but it really doesn't say a lot about the inside of my head, does it?
You're such a creative man with words.
Well, that's
it's really nice to be here, sit on the other side of the track, and look at my friends out there. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. We chatted in the first practice session, and it was very insightful. I learned a lot. I'm going to go back through it and take some notes. So the car's out once again. Now, I mentioned earlier on it was Maro Engel 49.202 in that first practice session. So that's going to be what they're aiming at. I kind of think maybe it's a benchmark, but last year in quali, it was Jordan Pepper who was quickest of anybody, a 48.467. I think we're going to see that eclipse this weekend, don't you?
I think so too. I think with the new tire we have this season, I think we're going to go a bit faster. Obviously, there's not many corners here to make a difference. There's not so much, on tracks like Zandvoort, for example, you can really make a difference. Here a bit less, but still I think we're going to go well below the 49 mark. Let's see. Track temperature obviously rose a little bit since we had the sun out all day. I spoke to some drivers as well, and they said
so
it was all...
I still have the P-oil gear warning.
What was that? I think that's
just some technical issues, I think, with the Lamborghini.
Yeah, Gary, you've been talking to drivers. You're doing better than me.
Yeah, of course, I have to do some networking.
Good move, good move. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so they're all getting into the groove. I think it was quite a session like expected this morning, and the track conditions were quite stable, and for them it was all about getting into their rhythm now. We didn't see anyone clip the wall yet, so maybe...
Yet? Now you've done it.
Yeah, you know, I also have to get rid of the commentator curse.
Yeah, do it nice and early. Yeah, absolutely. I'm still trying to dial myself down because you'll probably hear it in my voice. I'm slightly overexcited. We've just had Porsche's 6th Carrera Cup Deutschland qualifying. Your brother, Flint, very much a star of the show around here, putting in times that were knocking on the door of what Maro Engel did in quali this morning, in free practice this morning. You've got to be impressed by that.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think the new Porsche Cup car is really fast. It gained a little bit of horsepower and obviously the ABS system. So now it's basically a GT 3.5 car, we can call it that, because it would be right in the midfield of the DTM grid. Obviously they're going to go a bit faster now, but they're definitely not too shabby at the moment. So it was very, very cool to see, and I'm looking forward to the races tomorrow as well.
Yeah, me too. I think all racing here is always spectacular. Porsche 6 Carrera Cup Deutschland is spectacular as well, as we see Jules Gounon in for a rehearsal pit stop. The Winwood team setting to work on the Yellow Mamba. We talked about, you briefly mentioned power and all the rest of it. I've been looking at the BOP changes heading into Norisring, so this is the chance to get a cup of tea and settle down. So Mercedes have had a 2.5mm increase in restrictor, so they're up to 37 millimeters, and have had 10 kilograms taken off from Lausitzring a couple of weeks ago. So that's going to give them a bit more pace. Porsche also 3.5 millimeters to 43 millimeters on their restrictor, and 20 kilos taken off, but they're still unbelievably 30 kilograms heavier than they were last year. The Aston Martin is 20 kilograms heavier than last year. I'm saying this like I know what the hell I'm on about. Ferrari have had a 0.1 bar boost. They are 15 kilograms heavier than last year, but remember they've had the Evo. They've also got a slightly lower ride height. The McLaren has a 0.1 bar boost, but it's 35 kilograms heavier than last year. But the pressure is increased by 0.02 bar. Still a bit lighter than Lausitzring. Are you as lost as I am? I haven't got a clue what this lot means. BMW are 0.04 bar boost increase from Lausitzring. They weigh the same as 2025, but the BMW's got a new turbocharger for 2026, which has been lots of publicity about that. And the Ford is 15 kilograms more than last year, but with a restrictor that is 1 millimeter larger than last year. That's the last time I'm going to mention BOP in this session, because it's clear that I haven't got a clue what all that means.
Yeah, it's clear that everyone gained some weight over winter. That's one thing for sure. But I think it will be an interesting session also now for the scrutineers to have a look on what's happening. But after quali, I think it's the important session, and we might see some changes after that. Mercedes looked very strong, and when you look at the numbers, I think the weekend is shaping in a positive way for them. But you never know what's going to happen, and we're really going to know the truth by tomorrow after quali. Definitely going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it really is. And of course, this is the last opportunity to get that set up before the critical quali session, which takes place tomorrow morning. And that will be in what will probably be cooler conditions. The forecast for tomorrow is that it is going to be a little bit cooler in the air temperature anyway. And of course, quali takes place at 9:30 tomorrow morning, so everything's going to be a bit colder. We've got groups in quali as well. We'll tell you some more about that in a bit, just as we see Maro Engel getting out of the way for Max Powell. But with those cooler conditions tomorrow, how relevant what is learned in a session now in the blazing hot sunshine, how relevant is that? How transferable is that for tomorrow morning when it could be, I don't know, 5, even 10 degrees cooler?
It's something to take into account. I think now we're more in a race session, just because the temperatures are a little bit higher, so I think it's more valuable for the race than for the quali. At the same time, this morning's session was also a bit difficult to get a read on the conditions, since the track was just a bit more dirty, naturally, because it's the first session on a street track. So every lap counts for them, every lap is valuable, and still, although it might be a bit hotter, the car reacts relatively the same over bumps, etc. So it's definitely valuable for them. As we see Tommy Preining again, hopping through the chicane, and as you can hear, the rear axle is locking up quite a lot, just because it has to cope with all the bumps and also the concrete patches here. So it's really a special place.
I'm impressed you can hear that. That's and you can see, particularly as they're coming out of the Dutzendijk turn and out of turn 5, you can see the cars bouncing around a little bit, heading out on the straight. You can see how bumpy this circuit is. So it really, and I can imagine those bumps can catch you out when you hit one at a time when you're not anticipating it, and you get caught out and sent in a direction you don't want to go in, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. When you're going for an overtake move, I think tomorrow you really have to be mindful of the bumps, especially on this track, because it can catch you out by surprise. It's also quite interesting now, already after 7 minutes, that we're matching the lap times of FP1, so clearly either the teams found some performance or the track is ramping up. As you also see Ben Deur preparing a lap, I think we're getting into the mood of the weekend.
We're definitely getting into the mood of the weekend, because as you say, Ben Deur, 49.239, that is getting very close to the 49.202 that Maro Engel set this morning. Just to recap this morning's FP1, it was Engel who was fastest, Max Powell in second, Ben Deur was third with a 49.305. Then Nicky Tim, Mirko Bortolotti, Lucas Hauer, Jules Gounon, Arjun Maini, Finn Wiebelhaus and Marco Mappelli. That was the top 10. But it already feels like we are going to easily eclipse that 49.2. We've already mentioned Jordan Pepper's 48.4 from last year, his pole position time. It seems likely that we are going to eclipse, or we may well eclipse that even in this session, I think, mightn't we? With the new tyre that we have for this year, the all-new Pirelli P0 DHG slick tyre with sustainable components, naturally rubber components that are certified by the Forest Stewardship Council. And they're manufactured at Pirelli's Breuberg site in Germany. And great tyre, but one that the drivers are learning. And I don't know how different the tyre is. Some have said it's actually quite similar to last year's tyre. But I should think around here, somewhere like Norisring, learning the tyre is yet another kind of obstacle in the way.
Definitely. It's quite different in its heat up from what I've heard. Obviously, I have a reference from last year, but I don't know the tire and the way it handles this year, since it's different to other championships around the globe. But it looks to be much better on warm-up, and it's also a bit more peaky. And what I mean with peaky is that during the qualifying you see that they really reach a quick lap time, and after that it's hard for them to recreate the lap time, and they just have a little bit more of a drop, so we call it. which is also interesting because it means that the drivers really have to manage their tire during the race, and you will see some tire differences, especially on Sunday when we have 2 pit stops and 3 stints.
I think I need to take a cool down.
Copy, we are P1 for the moment, still purple sector 1. Sector 2, we're missing 80,000. Sector 3, we're missing 70,000.
That's clearly a delayed message because at the moment Jules Gounon is the first into the 48s already, 48.968. Anyway, carry on, as you were saying.
Yeah, and this is also interesting because you see with 23 laps on the tires, he's still able to get such a lap time out. So it shows that he's very comfortable in the Mercedes and they're looking good. Yeah, but as I said, when you have 3 stints on the Sunday, you really have to manage the tire. As it's a 3-tire weekend, it means that at some stage you will be on a bad set of tires. And if you're then someone who has a good car underneath, but also a good feeling with the tire, it makes all the difference.
God, you have to think so far ahead in this with the strategy and with everything, don't you? Really, really interesting. Right, well, you can see Lucas Auer has turned the wick up, so he's purple in Sector 1. We're already up to, well, 33.5 minutes remaining of this second session. The one they're all chasing, Jules Gounon, a 48.968. Still looking for his first ever win in the DTM. Surely that is going to come soon. Is it going to be this weekend at the Norisring? Lucas Auer jumps up to P3. So I mentioned this in FP1. I'm going to mention it again, how quali is going to work this weekend for DTM. So the free practice times will be combined. I think this session primarily is going to be where they're going to be taking most of the times from, but the drivers' best times combined. And from that, the fastest will be put into Group A, the second fastest into Group B, the third fastest into Group A, and so on and so forth. So the odd-numbered finishes into Group A, the even-numbered finishes into Group B. Those groups will then go separately tomorrow morning in quali. It means that we haven't got 21 cars out on track all at the same time. So we'll have either 10 or 11 cars at a time out on track. The fastest driver out of those 2 groups will start on pole position. The rest of his group will line up behind him. And the fastest from the other of the groups will start on the outside front row, and the rest of his group will line up behind him. So that should form the grid. And then in quali on Sunday, it'll be group, well, for tomorrow, it'll be Group A and Group B that will go separately. Then it'll be reversed. So Group B will go out first on the Sunday for quali, and Group A will go second. I'd like to think I've made that clear. I'm not entirely sure it was clear, but it means that the track will not be crowded. The cars hopefully will not be tripping over each other, and we're hopefully going to be able to get a good, fair qualifying session. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something that's really important, as you see now, with cars exiting the pits and cars on hot laps. It's just rather busy, and it's difficult for everyone to also give way in a nice place because it's so bumpy and dirty, also offline, that there just had to be something to make it easier for the drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. What we want to do is avoid traumas. We want to give everybody the best opportunity. Another change for this weekend is the reduced speed limit in the pit lane, 40 kilometers an hour. Also, the pit boxes are a little bit more spaced out as well, with the gallows, as they're called, the bits that hang over the pit lane. They have been spaced out as well, just to make it a little bit safer in the pit lane. We certainly had a few issues in Zandvoort. That's a tight pit lane in Zandvoort, and wanting to avoid any kind of issues like that. The pit tents have been separated a little bit more. It's 13 meters instead of 10 meters apart for the gallows. It means that the cars have got a bit more room in the pits, and it also gives drivers a better opportunity to get into the fast lane. The other bit I was reading about is how they use fluorescent tape on the wall, so that the lollipop man will keep the lollipop down as long as there is a car in the fast lane between the 2 marks on the wall of fluorescent tape. He will keep that lollipop down. He can lift the lollipop. Doesn't mean that's when the car will go, but it means that he's clear to go out without an unsafe release.
I think a good moment is now also to see it with the up sign. It's basically the last moment that the lollipop man can still lift its lollipop without being in danger of having an unsafe release. Still, in DTM, it's quite difficult to anticipate this because you have the cold tire when you exit the box. So you have so much wheel spin that sometimes your drive-off takes longer than you expect, and then you're into this unsafe release danger zone. And the DTM is also rather strict on this, so if there's any overlap with the car in the fast lane, you have to drop back immediately, or you see the warning flags that we saw in Zandvoort. So I think it's for sure a good thing that we reduce the speed to 40 kph and that there's a little bit more space between the gantries. Otherwise, it will be a fun, cozy traffic jam towards pit exit.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? I hadn't actually thought about the fact that the tyres are colder, so it takes longer to get out of the box. I mean, every last bit you have to think about here. And of course, it's been a topic of much discussion over the last few weeks that the fast lane does not have priority if a car is emerging from the working lane. So it's the driver in the fast lane sometimes needs to back out and give that space to the car that's emerging as well.
That's new to me, to be honest. So as I know it, is that the fast lane always has priority and you have to give way when you're in the working lane. But I'm happy to be told otherwise.
Yeah, because DTM are doing it differently to other series. So yeah, it's a topic of great discussion. A lot of the team owners have been having a lot of discussions about it. It'll be interesting to see where it goes from that. But it's whereas in other series the fast lane always has the priority, they're saying that that is not the case here in DTM. But who knows where this is going? I know it's been a topic of conversation over many weeks, and DTM has its own kind of set of rules, which is different to something like GT World Challenge. So we'll see where that one goes. But yeah, pit lane safety always a priority as well, and that's why we have that reduced speed limit. Right, okay, let's have a look here. Jules Gounon, the only one into the 48.968. So quickest of the day so far, currently in the pits. So less than half an hour left of the final free practice session. What are the teams doing now? What are they thinking about now?
So they're now preparing the last run, because this is basically the final chance they have to hit the track before qualifying. I'm also a bit curious why Bastien Buus has not driven yet. I met him over lunch less than an hour ago, and I was already a bit surprised he was not suited up. So maybe he missed his timing slot. No, but jokes aside, for some reason he appears not to be on track, which is not what you want, because you really need the track time. Also for him, it's his first time out there, so every lap is valuable, as you can also see here with Tommy Preining again, who's pushing on. But it's one of the most important runs now, because you can try the final bits that you spoke about with your engineers and your mechanics before you hit the track tomorrow in quali. And basically from qualifying on, there's not much you can do anymore. The race is all about quali, so if you're in the back, it's difficult to recover from it. So this is definitely very important for them.
Yeah, I should think that if there was ever a track where you needed to make sure you were on it for quali, it's going to be here, isn't it? So clearly there is an issue in the Lamb Motorsport garage with that Porsche. So I don't know whether, I mean, he would normally have been out by now. So Bastien clearly got some problem there. You say, I don't think he would have missed the slot, but yeah, still very much on a high after that Spa win. And that was the other co-driver, one of the three, Tommy Preining, with, of course, Ricardo Feller, the other of the three. What was great looking at Spa last week, it was it was really good to see the emotion, actually. Bastien was quite overcome with emotion, and I kind of, you realise, you know, when a driver, I don't know about you, you start young when you're karting and you go through the junior series and you're pushing forwards, and then suddenly you get that really big win. You would have had this when you won Le Mans.
And overall, car feels a bit better. I'm quite happy with the car, to be honest. I think we just need to put tires on it.
So that's what you want to hear as an engineer.
Happy with the cars, just put the tyres on it. That's Arjamaini on the blower to his engineer, so that's really, really good. So yeah, when you won Le Mans 24 a couple of years ago, that after years of pushing through the junior series, through cup car racing, through all the rest of it, and you saw that emotion from Bastien, particularly last weekend. It must be like the most amazing feeling when you've worked so hard and then you get a massive win like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I can very much relate to how emotional he became. And the funny thing is, all race you're obviously focused on the task ahead, and you don't even dare to think about that you're going to win, because you don't want to jinx it. You know, you're just going to be focused on your job. And then as soon as the last 10 minutes come and the car crosses the line, it's like, it's a feeling that's really hard to describe. And that's the first moment that you think about all the effort you put in. And, you know, it's so much hard work and sacrifice. And I'm sure Basti, he very much deserved it. They did a great job all race. And it's a big relief for him, I'm sure.
I remember watching you when you were in Carrera Cup Benelux, and then you had several years in Porsche 6 Carrera Cup Deutschland. It was my absolute privilege to commentate when you took that first win. That was quite emotional, and I've seen you in Super Cup. You've been really successful there. And, you know, for me, when I've seen people like you at Le Mans, at Bastian, at Spa 24, people that I've kind of commentated on over the years, I was emotional when I was watching it as well. And you invest so much in these drivers, and it is just wonderful to see the younger drivers coming through the ranks and sticking it to some of the older drivers, and not wishing to talk about older drivers and Timo Glock in the same sentence, but of course Timo, who's been all the way to the top in Formula One, now here in the DTM, has not had a lot of luck over the last couple of years. It seems to be with Dürr Motorsport. They've got Volker Strycek now heading up operations at that team. But it feels like if there's ever any bad luck, it seems to go to Timo Glock. And he must wonder what he's got to do to get a break.
Yeah, I feel quite bad for him, because quite often he had the pace or he was doing well, and then for one or the other reason it seemed to get away from him. On the other hand, I also have a lot of respect for Bender, who's doing so well, and also showing his pace against the former Formula 1 driver. But I really hope for Timo also that things will go his way and that he can have a success, because obviously he's also sacrificing things in his private life, and you know, I've respected he's still pushing on and doing so much for the sport. And then you wish for someone like that to also have some successes.
Yeah, he's an incredible ambassador for the sport, and he is responsible for an increase in people coming to watch. There are names and characters and brands that bring people through the turnstiles. Timo Glock is one of them, that people come to support him, and he has a very vocal fan club. He's just peeled off into the pits. Not a lot going on track at the moment. So what's happening here? Because it's 22 minutes effectively before qualifying. In my head, it would be like, wow, this is critical. I've got to go and get everything right. And yet, it's looking, we see how close to the wall he can get? Wow, that's all right. It was miles of space. With less than 22 minutes remaining, did the camera survive? Yeah, maybe rocked a little, but that was it. What is going on? Why have we got so many cars in the pits? I mean, we've got Arjun Maini just coming on and out of that, but apart from that, we've got 4 cars out on track. So what occurs now, do you think?
Yeah, so basically now they're all preparing for their final run. Most of them saved their new tire for now, as they have a set of new tires for the free practice. So what they usually do, as you see now, I think the directors are perfectly aligned with me.
They're listening.
They exit the box and they do a so-called preparation or cooking lap for the tire. So what they do is they drag the brakes and they drive 1 or 2 laps, since the lap is rather short here. Then they come back into the box and let the heat basically soak into the tire. And after that they do their final quali run. So as we see, with a little less than 21 minutes to go, it's close to a quali timing, so they really want to simulate the qualifying and yet keep a bit of margin for a red flag or whatsoever. But you see that all focus is on qualifying now. Obviously it's a bit different for Bastian, because he just missed so many laps in the beginning. So for him it's just about doing as much as possible at the moment just to get into his own groove. Because he, unfortunately had rather short time on track. And therefore, I think for them, the strategy is just drive the thing and get comfortable on the track.
Yeah, really interesting. So I imagine if you're getting it right now and it feels good and everything's in the window, then it is just touch nothing, leave it as it is, and run it again tomorrow in quali.
Yeah, in a way, yes. On the other hand, track temperature is higher. The cars are carrying a bit more fuel than usual. So for sure now the fuel is draining off, but still the car will be a little bit different tomorrow. So on one hand, yes, but personally I also always liked it if the FP sessions were not ideal, because you have to dig deep and you're gonna work for it, and then on the Saturday morning you have fresh energy to push for the quali.
Brilliant. Well, we can see Bastian Boos is out on track at the moment. So he's up to 18th place, so 49.547. So he's about just a little under 6/10 off the fastest time. Still Jules Gounon, the only driver into the 48s, 48.968. So again, I mean, I mentioned this when we chatted in free practice 1. Is there a sense that drivers are just holding back a bit at the moment, or are we going to see a load of 48s popping up on the screen in a moment?
It's a very good question. I mean, I'd hope so. It's great to see 48s.
Yeah.
Definitely we're going to see them tomorrow. Yeah, we saw some cars peeling into the pits while doing some fast sectors, so let's see what that's about. And for sure tomorrow we're going to see the action. And now, for example, you can also hear on the friction of the car of team that he's preparing the brakes. Then he's going to peel into the pits to basically let the heat get into the tires. So this is really a simulation for him for the qualifying.
Chris and I are always talking about the heat soak cycle. It's a hard thing to say. So it's really good to get that perspective from you as a driver. And you talk about dragging the brakes. That's when I was learning to drive back in the dark ages. They were like, "Don't ever drag the brakes," but that is generating heat. What's the advantage of doing that? Because you've got the heat that's generated on the outside of the tyre. Is there an advantage to heating effectively from the inside, from the brakes and through the rims? Does that create an advantage doing it in that direction, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely, because the tires are basically cold in DTM. You have no allowance for using tire heaters or ovens, whatever. So you really want to firstly bring the temperature to the core of the tire before you can work the surface. If you start working with the surface, it takes longer, and you only have surface temperature, but not on the whole carcass of the tire and the sidewalls. So what they do now is it's like building a house. Now they're building the foundation of it, the inside temperature, and then as soon as the heat is in there, they can start working the surface. If you do it too fast, then you just don't get the optimum grip that they're looking for.
That is fascinating. I've been talking about these cars for years before I learned this, and clearly, it's a dark science, isn't it? It's a magic. It's all smoke and mirrors. Getting these things in the mirror, getting these things looking in the mirror.
Just
Team
keep
radio.
me updated when you feel that we need the bleed.
Yeah, it's a real scientific job getting these tyres in the window and getting them exactly where. And of course, tyre warmers not allowed. And the ADAC even clamping down on leaving the tyres in the sunshine. And because teams, drivers, always looking for any way at all they can gain any advantage. And it's so closely monitored, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. There's even now designated areas where the tires have to be. It has to be ambient temperature. It's also not allowed, for example, to have a hot tent around it or anything. So they're quite on it, and actually I'm happy they do. Otherwise, you start to get differences. So it's really important to have it fair. And it's also a point where a driver can really make the difference if he understands the way the tire works, not only for qualifying, but also a big part of DTM races is the outlap. So you have an outlap on cold tires, and if you are able to squeeze out maybe 1% more performance on a cold tire, it's far more lap time than on a hot tire.
Yeah.
So it's very important to have a good feeling with the tire overall.
We were talking to Mauro Engel over the winter, and he was talking about the importance of the in-lap and the out-lap. And in fact, he goes ice racing over the winter to get used to driving in slippery conditions, to prepare himself for outlaps when the tyres are cold. And I think that's amazing, actually, that level of preparation to even go ice racing so that you know how to control a sliding car. Isn't that incredible?
It's a very hard job to go ice racing, right? It's not too bad fun-wise as well.
I imagine it's great fun. I've never even seen it, not to mention taking part in it. Have you ever done ice racing?
I have, and I really enjoyed it. So if he can invite me, I'll join with a Porsche.
That would be great fun, wouldn't it? Right, okay, less than 15 minutes remaining of this session. You just see the disco snail come flashing through your screen. Finn Wiebelhaus in the HRT Ford Racing Mustang. And Finn, who has been something of a sensation. What we're liking here is we've got the real old boys, no disrespect, of DTM. You've got the likes of Marco Wittmann, who's so experienced. You've got Mauro Enkel. You've got the drivers who've been in it for quite a few years. And then you've got these young chargers. Have you been impressed by the progress of Finn Wiebelhaus, who's won the GT Masters Road to DTM last year and is into the big league and has already got himself a podium? I mean, that's impressive, isn't it?
It's very cool. Also that the ADAC can basically prove their system with the GT Masters, which is basically doing a full DTM season already track and tire-wise, which is very important. And then for him to jump into the Ford and do it with the big boys is obviously very impressive and a great opportunity for him as well.
Your route was via Porsche 6 Carrera Cup Deutschland and Porsche Mobil 1 Super Cup, so you came through the kind of the Porsche route. Do you think that's a tougher way to get into motorsport, or do you think it's kind of fairly even? I mean, the ADAC ladder is kind of carting into what would be now the new BMW M2 Cup, maybe into GT4, GT Masters, DTM. You've kind of come from a slight kind of tangent as such. Was that a steep learning curve?
Yeah, I mean, the Porsche Cup scene, whether it's Benelux, Germany, Super Cup, I've done them all. I've done Middle East as well. And the level is so high everywhere, and I'm so thankful that I had this challenge, because when you go out of that, and when I stepped into WEC, for example, even though I was young and I didn't have a lot of experience, I felt very ready, and I felt like the hardest challenge was already behind me, which is making your way up, you know. Then obviously each year you keep learning, and I'm far from where I eventually want to be, and you always want to learn. But I think this is the hardest ladder basically to climb.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my next question, really, because this time last year you were racing in DTM. I sincerely hope we're going to see you back again in DTM soon. But how hard was that kind of, I would say, final run, because it's part of a much bigger picture, but how hard was that baptism of fire stepping into a DTM car after years in a cup car?
I mean, it was obviously a huge challenge, which I knew beforehand. I was very, very motivated, and I look back on the year and I don't have any regrets. I really worked really hard and a lot, and I'm also really happy with the way I did. Having two insanely good drivers as teammates didn't make it any easier, with, you know, Tommy being a 23 champion, Chan winning in 2025. And I'm only grateful for that, because it just made me a better driver. I obviously want to be back rather sooner than later, but I'm also happy with the chances that I have at the moment. I stay humble and I stay working, and when a chance arises, I take it.
Well, that's an awesome attitude, and we love watching you in other stuff, but we would very much love to be watching you in DTM, and I sincerely hope that will be soon. Without wishing to approach an awkward situation, you have spoken to Arjen Guven after last weekend, and all's good.
Yeah, he called me on Monday. We had a chat, and all is good. In the end, we are both racing drivers, and we had the same goal. So yeah, things sometimes happen. Obviously, it was very unfortunate, and I would have preferred it not to happen. But we spoke. He apologized, and we're all good now.
Anybody who knows Chan will know that he is a top bloke, and there's certainly nothing malicious there. As you say, we're all racing drivers, or you are all racing drivers. I just about race a trolley around the supermarket, that's about it. But it's, you know, it's top level, isn't it? And something like Spa 24, so much pressure, you're in the heat as well, and these things can happen. Just a bit of a shame it was a fellow Porsche, but hey, a Porsche won, that was the important bit, and and it's great to see Chan doing so well himself, of course, not defending his DTM title this year, but still an awful lot of competition out there. great to see DTM going from strength to strength. One of the things that we are always speculating about is next season. And Thomas Voss from the ADAC, he said, without giving too much away, you should plan on taking an extra weekend off next year. So we're hopeful it means we're going to get a 9th round, a couple of extra races in the DTM. It was interesting talking to Thierry Vermeulen a few weeks ago. He was saying, do you know what? I'd be really happy if they swapped Zandvoort for Assen, because he absolutely loves. I've yet to meet anybody who doesn't love Assen. And as a Dutch driver yourself, is Assen like a really good circuit?
Definitely. Why not have both?
Yes.
No,
yes.
it's a really cool track. I do love the beach, to be honest. So Zandvoort is not too bad. But for the variants, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. So where else would you like to see DTM going? And for if we have a 9th round, where would you like to see?
I think it's important that we stick to the culture of DTM, which is more old school tracks where you have physical track limits and a challenge for the drivers. And then I'm quite open. I don't have necessarily one track where I say we have to go there, but I would prefer for it not to be a track limit and runoff oriented track.
I'd like to see us back at Brands Hatch for 2 reasons. One, because I live just down the road, and 2, because it's a great circuit. Don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But we look with interest. I understand we're going to get a calendar, hopefully, for next year in the next month or 2, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens. And we will look with great interest. I think the Norisring is cemented into the DTM schedule for the next 40 years or however many. As we look at Ben Durr, he's set a personal best in Sector 1. So this circuit split into 3 sectors, as are most circuits. So Sector 1 from the start-finish straight around the Grundig Turn 1 and then heading in towards the Scholar S. Section 2, really short. It is just the right-left of the chicane, a little bit of the Zeppelinstrasse, and then Sector 3 is the last Dutzendijk curve and Turn 5. Some people call it a 4-corner track, some call it a 5-corner track. I say it's the closest thing to an oval you're ever going to get in DTM, which I absolutely love. And Turn 5 taken flat out. But the sectors are so short, and it means that any kind of mistake at all is really punished here, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to see tomorrow the gaps between cars in qualifying are going to be incredibly tight already. At the moment, we see that the whole field again is in 7/10. So it's crazy, and a small little mistake can be changing your whole weekend. On the other hand, it's also an opportunity, because if you maximize everything, you can actually make maybe more of a difference position-wise compared to normal tracks.
Yeah, I mean, it's potentially the great leveler, isn't it? Because I'm guessing, like Monaco, excuse me, the driver has more of an opportunity to shine here.
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's a great track to make a difference. You see how close some guys are going to the wall. Although I would say that's not the only thing that you need to go faster. I think there's more to understanding the bumps and the way you have to use them rather than going close to the walls. But when you put a lap together in quali, obviously all has to be aligned and you have to maximize every little inch.
Well, maximising every little inch at the moment. Ben Durr goes quickest, the second driver into the 48, so 48.909. So he did a personal best in Sector 1, a purple in Sector 2. So maybe Ben Durr just showing a little bit of the pace. He must fancy an opportunity in quali tomorrow. Lucas Auer has gone the quickest of anybody in Sector 1. His Sector 2 time was about 1/10 and a half off, but less than 1/10 and a half off the time that's set by Ben Durr. But Lugi always up there, just consistently, always there, nibbling away in that car. In the background, you can see Tom Callender as well. So this is the part where you were saying earlier that maybe towards the end of the session, we're going to see some quick times here. So with 5.5 minutes remaining, are we starting to look like we might see some drivers starting to pull the pin and seeing what they can do in terms of a qualifying setup?
I think now the track is hot, as we call it. Everyone is pushing. We see quite some green sectors around. And yeah, like I said, this is the last chance before qualifying to really nail the setup, which is so important around this place. As you see, Maro Engel missing his braking point a bit, which implies also that he's pushing. You know, he's not just cruising around. They're trying to optimize the car, and it's easily done in turn 1. I can tell you. As we also see Marco Marpelli driving to the limit of his Lamborghini. It's quite interesting to see also their progress. You know, it was great at the Lausitzring that they're able to fight. I think everyone is happy for them to make progress and also to be really part of the pack rather than just driving around.
Yeah, I mean, there were some long faces at the Red Bull Ring. We knew when the Temerario came out, as Thierry Vermeulen makes space for Marco Marpelli, we knew when the Temerario came out, it was going to take a bit of developing, but there were some long faces at the start of the season. But they've made some great steps, and with Red Bull Team ABT and with GRT Grasser developing that car as well, they've come on in leaps and bounds. And I would just say, as a side note, really excited to hear that Gottfried Grasser is going to be racing in the ADAC GT Masters next weekend in a Lamborghini Huracan. That put a smile on my face, and he's jumping back into a driving seat after I think it's been about 11 years away. It's going to be very exciting to see. I'm lucky I'm going to be commentating on it. I'll be on site at Nürburgring next weekend. Very excited to see what happens there. That's an aside, but yeah, he and ABT, both teams, developing that Temerario, and they have done so much. And we read and heard about how it had been on Nico Rosberg's rig, his test rig. They'd had the car up there, and they'd been doing so much research into it. And it's amazing how just what would be a bracket that probably cost about €1 to make, and agreements just change that wing angle, has changed the whole picture for the Lamborghini, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, aero nowadays is so important on the car, so if we're able to just put more downforce on it, obviously it's going to help a lot. And I'm interested to see also how long it's going to last until they figure out the rest and they're not allowed anymore to use it.
Yes.
Because that stage will come. I'm sure they do a good job with developing the car. If you look also at the Huracan, it's really an established car, and it was very fast, so that time will come. And about Gottfried, it would be funny maybe to see all team managers do a race together. Yes,
absolutely. Well, Hubert Haupt did a ADAC GT Masters race at the Red Bull Ring a couple of years ago, and he was very rapid until somebody decided to rearrange the back of the car. So what does that mean? Blowers are allowed out. Is that cooling?
Yeah, so that's cooling for the brakes. So normally the car has to be under a certain condition where it's not touched. But now, especially at a track like this where there's no air going through the cars because it's all closed off with walls, it's important to cool those brakes because they are scorching hot at the moment.
It's good to understand what that means. Could have been anything, that could have. So with 2 minutes remaining of this session, well, nobody is going too wild at the moment. It's still Ben Durr who's at the top. I say still, he's jumped to the top, the 48.793. Lucas Auer is up to second, 48.944. And Jules Gounon, 48.968. So we've got quite a few cars. In fact, the top 5 into the 48s, because they are joined by Nicky Tim in 4th, Thierry Vermeulen in 5th. So they're all in the 48. So maybe just showing a little bit of what we might see tomorrow. But now we're into the final 90 seconds of free practice, the second and final free practice here at the Norisring. Next time out on track, it will be for quali tomorrow morning. It'll be great to see Arjamani get a good result. He had that pole position last time out at Lausitzring, still looking for that first win. I think he would be a very popular winner, wouldn't he?
Yeah, definitely. It would be great to see an Indian driver take the win. Would it be the first time?
It would, yes.
That would be amazing for him also, and I think he deserves it. He's quite loyal to the DTM, so it would be great for him to take that win. As we also see the pit lane getting more and more busy now, because it's also one of the last chances to do a hot pit stop for the mechanics. So it's obviously allowed to practice them at the evening, but it's even better to practice them with the car actually driving into the box. And also for the drivers, because as I did this championship, I can tell you the parking is really important also for the mechanics, because they need to place their wheel gun exactly at where they expect you to park. So to be consistent is really important, and it's easy to over or undershoot this. So it's also important as a driver to get into the rhythm and nail your parking spot.
Yeah, I could believe that. And I imagine doing it now is a lot more meaningful because you've got the adrenaline and the sweat. It's when it's an evening and they're pushing the car into the box, it's a completely different scenario. With a driver coming in now at 40 kilometers an hour trying to hit the marks, I imagine that is absolutely critical for getting it right.
Yeah, definitely. It's difficult, and I can also imagine as a mechanic that it's yeah, intimidating when you see a car, you know, going into the box, especially if there's maybe a train of cars pulling into the pits. Also for the guy to put the airlines into the car, you have to be really precise. So it's not all plug and play as we might think.
Yeah, I'd be terrified. Right, well, you can see checkered flag is out, and it's Ben Durr who tops the session. The quickest time of the day, 48.793. Still 3/10 off the quali record from last year set by Jordan Pepper, but I get the feeling tomorrow morning in quali that record may well be broken, and Ben Durr surely going to be a real contender to do that as well. So he climbs from the car. Lucas Harris second, Jules Gounon in third, Nicky Tim in fourth, and Nicky, another one who clearly loves it around here. The whole field separated by less than 9/10 of a second. That is insane. And there is your confirmation. Ben Durr for Durr Motorsport, once again quickest. He's getting used to this, isn't he? Lucas Auer in second, Jules Gounon, Nicky Tim, Thierry Vermeulen. Good job there in fifth place ahead of Mirko Bortolotti, Mauro Engel, Max Powell, once again in the top 10. Good job from him. Championship leader, Matteo Cairoli in ninth, and Tom Callender in 10th place, just 3/10 off the quickest time. So really good job from him. Then is Marco Mappelli, Arjun Maini, Luca Exler, Timo Glock and Nicola Bart. Then Kelvin van der Linde, Finn Wiebelhaus, Thomas Preining, Ricardo Feller, Bastian Boost down in 20th place, and local driver Marco Wittmann in 21st. It's all set to change though, because tomorrow morning we will be qualifying for the first race of the weekend. Join us then 9:30 for qualifying one. From myself, Brian Oliver, and Maurice Schering here from the Norisring. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Dankeschön, Frank. Danke, DTM-Fans.